Alright, welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I want to start my series of team previews for the 2026 F1 season. So I think for this series, I'm going to aim to try to go in reverse Constructors Championship order from the past season. So of course that would naturally mean starting with Alpine or I guess Cadillac, depending on how you want to do it. Cadillac, of course, haven't released their livery yet. They're doing that, I believe, during this Super Bowl halftime show. So we're going to have to wait a bit to see the new car. And so I'm opting to wait a little bit to do their season preview. Obviously, so starting out with Alpine, first I want to go over team stats, team info for this year. So taking a look at team info, of course, as always, their base is in Enstone in the United Kingdom. But the one big change from last year is that they're no longer a works team. They decided to ditch their Renault power units from 2026 onwards and will instead be a Mercedes customer team. They must have had very little faith in that Renault power unit if they decide that being a customer team was preferable to having their own engine. Now, for team principal, of course, Flavio Briatore, technically new for this year, as this time last year, Oliver Oakes was team principal, and Briatore was in a executive advisor role, although we all kind of knew that Briatore was the one who was calling the shots. Technical director, same as last year, David Sanchez. Now, taking a look at that 2025 season, it was quite the season and not in a good way. They finished last in pretty much every statistical category, finishing dead last in points, average pole gap, as well as average minimum finishing position, which is a stat that I like to use to more accurately show, how strong a car is in terms of race performance, as points can be a little bit not exactly the best measure of how good a team actually is. So in terms of points, 22 on the season, which again was dead last, but I guess the only solace Alpine can really take from that is that it was basically the best worst team in F1 history. No last place team in F1 history has ever had 22 points. So in that respect, it wasn't an absolutely terrible year compared to, say, the 2019-2020 Williams, just off the top of my head. But still, they were the slowest team this past year. Average pole gap was quite a bit more competitive, to be honest, 1.189 seconds, a little bit slower than team in ninth. And average minimum finishing position was pretty bad, though. I think it's almost about 3 positions worse than the next worst team. And again, that kind of highlights just how, while the qualifying pace in the car wasn't too bad last year, the race pace was really, really poor, and it just meant that the drivers ended up going backwards and couldn't really do a whole lot with what they had. Now, in terms of their two drivers for 2026, actually, before we talk about the drivers, new category that I'm doing for this year is I'm looking at first year record and new year of regulations. We're just picking these 4 years, these 4 big major regulation changes. And we're going to talk about how this team, or I guess this factory in this case, did each of those 4 years. So 2005, things went pretty well for this team when they were called Renault. Finished first in the Constructors, won the Constructors and the Drivers' World Championship with 191 points. Again, this was old point system, that's why the points total seems a little bit low. And yeah, definitely made the most of the changes that were aimed to kind of really hurt Ferrari, things like banning tire stops and stuff like that. Or yeah, banning tire changes. 2009, of course, big regulation change came in there. KERS, big changes to the aerodynamics as well. Renault did not do particularly well that year. They dropped from, I think, 4th or 5th in the Constructors down to 8th. And only 26 points, really helped by the fact that they had Fernando Alonso as one of their drivers. Then we get to 2014, and again, not a great year. A massive drop-off from where this team was in 2013, where I think they were third or 4th in the Constructors' Championship. They even won a race in 2013. So to drop to 8th in the Constructors, only get 10 points, was a massive drop-off. A lot of that was Renault engine, but still, this was also a team that was in really poor financial straits at this time. Then we get to 2022. Honestly, I think the first year of the last regulations we had were pretty good by this team's standards. They finished 4th in the championship that year, 173 points, and of course beat McLaren in the Constructors that year, something that they would not do any of the following years, as McLaren would, basically improve every year, and Alpine would basically get worse every year. So it'll be interesting to see how Alpine does this time. I think the fact going from Renault power to Mercedes power is expected to be the class leader, at least to start this year. I think, and based on how poor this past season was by their usual expectations, the expectations are, I think they should improve and generally be higher than where they were last year. Again, they could be worse, but I think it would be very, very hard for that to be the case. Now, taking a look at their two drivers for this year, same as their lineup for most of last season, of course, Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto. Gasly, 29 years of age, this is his 9th season in Formula One. He's had 177 starts with a career tally of 458 points. A career best of 7th in the championship, and that was in 2019, the season where he split the season between Red Bull and Toro Rosso. Now, for Colapinto, this is actually his first full season in Formula One. He, of course, came in to replace Sargent midway through 2024, then replaced Doohan after 6 races of 2025. And so this is the first time that I have a full season of winter testing and all that, where he'll be on kind of an equal playing field with his teammate in terms of experience with the car. He's from Argentina, 22 years of age. This is his second season in F1. Again, with the partial seasons, it's a little bit more tricky to calculate. He's done 26 starts in F1 in his career, so a little bit more than one full season, based on the fact that we have 24 race seasons now. And then, of course, in terms of points, he's only scored 5 in his career. Most of last year, he didn't really have a car capable of scoring points, and then he scored all 5 of those points during his Williams stint. And that Williams stint, in terms of standing in the championship, that was actually his best result, finishing 19th in 2024. Now, looking more at drivers' career stats, in terms of wins, Gasly is the only one with a win there. He, of course, has won at the 2020 Italian Grand Prix, no pole positions, but he does have 5 podiums total. Now, career points above expected, so this is how many points they've scored, more or less than what they're expected to do based on how strong the car is and based on where they start the Grand Prix over their entire F1 career. And for Gasly, he's at 110%. For Colapinto, he's at 120. But again, a little bit of a small sample size there for Colapinto. Now, in terms of quality rating, career quality rating, and race rating, I thought this was a fun one to do. For Gasly, negative 0.040, so a little bit better than average, and that ranks 36, so pretty good there. And for Colapinto, not great on this account, positive 0.224, a little bit below average, and that ranks 69th since 1995, I should say. Race rating for Gasly actually quite good, positive 0.326, ranks 20th since 1995, and for Colapinto, negative 0.465. Quite bad. That ranks 96, but his partial season with Williams just did not have a big enough sample size to make the cut. Now, in terms of predictions for this season, I think this is going to be an interesting driver lineup to look at. In terms of qualifying, I do think that Gasly will definitely have the upper hand here. Median qualifying delta is being predicted of negative 0.167 seconds, which I think is marginally closer than what we saw this past season, where it was generally hovering around the 2/10 mark, but still I think Gasly is expected to out-qualify Colapinto more often than not this season. Now, points, this is where things were actually quite interesting. When I did put the numbers in for the race and quality for the race predictions, so the last slide that we saw where it had a Colapinto basically 96 in his career race rating, that's because the partial seasons that he did with Williams didn't count, because I had to use some kind of selection criteria just to stop it from just being chaos, to limit like really drivers with really small sample sizes from being there. But for this, I've decided to just include every season that they've done, and so basically because Colapinto's stint at Williams was so good compared to the experience that he had, his age, again, he was actually age and experience correct. He had a very high race rating. And then, of course, that basically fell back down really far this past season. So again, it'll be really interesting to see, which Colapinto is the real Colapinto. Is it the one that we saw at Williams, the flashes of, really good speed, or was it the one that we saw this past season where it was kind of okay, not great, a lot of crashes, that kind of thing. And so the prediction, the model is kind of going that saying, hey, we actually might see much more competent Colapinto this season. And again, I think that would be good for the sport as well. For the percentage per team points and for the points difference, I'm doing this. I'm being very nice here. I'm basically pretending that every team is going to be a front running team and get 500 points. And then I basically use that 500 points to say, what would each team get, what percentage of points each driver would get. So team gets 500 points, Gasly would get 50.4%, and Colapinto would get 49.6%, and that would put them at 4 points difference between the two of them. So very, very close in theory. And to be honest, I think Colapinto last year, most of his deficit to Gasly was in qualifying. I think in race performance, they were very, very close, but it'll be interesting to see how things are this year. I think it's going to be a big year for the Alpine team. They're going to really need to have a bounce back after a really horrible 2025, which I think, given what we're hearing about some of the other teams, looking at you, Williams, I think should be definitely manageable. I think best case scenario would be kind of a Williams 2014 type season, where they basically go from towards the bottom of the grid up nearish the front, with the change in the engine regulations and a change in engine suppliers. So that would basically be, I think, best case scenario for Alpine, but I think realistically, I think they're probably going to be back into the middle of the midfield. For Gasly, of course, he signed that new contract mid-season last year. It'll be interesting if there's any exit clauses in there, if the Alpine, for whatever reason, has another awful year. For Colapinto, I think this is really a make or break season. If he has a really strong season, it could allow him to, establish his spot on the grid for, several years to come. But another really poor season, kind of like what we saw this past season, and I think Colapinto could be heading towards the exit of F1, and you would be looking at either a new driver or from a different team, or a rookie coming in to take his spot for 2027. So interesting situations for both drivers, I think, and obviously pretty different points in their careers and with different pressures and that kind of thing. But again, should be an interesting season for Alpine. I hope they do well. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. So that's team 1 out of 11 done. For 2026, I'm going to have to get used to saying 11, not 10. Of course, with Cadillac coming in this year. That's all for the first team preview of the season. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.